Hello and welcome to this third session of our 2024 Transformation Literacy Conference. My name is Dominic Stucker, Managing Partner with Collective Leadership Institute, and I get to be your host today. Unfortunately, my colleague Lulekwa in South Africa is ill and she cannot do the moderation. Otherwise, I would have been joining from Cape Town. Rather, she would have been joining from Cape Town. In this session of the Transformation Literacy Conference, we get to move on to focus on transformation networks and meta-collaborations. You may recall that on Monday, we were focused on multi-stakeholder partnerships and initiatives. On Wednesday, we had a look at peer learning networks and communities of practice. And today we'll have three speakers talking to us about their respective transformation networks and meta-collaborations. Again, my name is Dominic. I'm calling in from Spain, where I live with my wife and 17-year-old twin boys. I've been with Collective Leadership Institute for a bit over 10 years, and I've been working in leadership development for about 2 decades now. It's an immense pleasure to be here with you, but I'm definitely not alone. Many of the individuals you see are with me. Katrin is supporting backstage. Any tech questions you might have, please direct to her. I'll be supported as well by 3 breakout group facilitators. We have Katarina, we have Teresa, we have Douglas, who will join you in the breakout rooms to facilitate those. The Collective Leadership Institute is an independent and nonprofit organization. We have our main offices in Germany and South Africa, and we're also present in Egypt, Spain, Ukraine, the United States. We've been around since 2005, working with inspiring individuals like yourselves around the world. We do a number of strategic things. One, our academy is where we build competence for leading change collectively. Individuals join these courses, groups join these courses. We have a collective leadership specialist certification program that includes 3 workshops. So feel free to check that out. We also work in transformation stewardship with whole stakeholder systems to help contribute to the sustainable development goals in different places around the world. Accompanying these 2 areas, we're also doing research alongside practitioners like yourselves and writing up and developing further publications and methodologies to support transformative change at different levels. And finally, we have a strategic area focused on movement building, where we're convening collective leadership networks, communities, much like this community that we're creating around this conference itself. We've had 2 sessions online already. This 3rd session continues to have the focus on localizing sustainability transformations, this time through transformation networks and through meta collaborations. I'll be introducing our speakers shortly. Now, let's get settled in and comfortable in this setting. First of all, a notebook and a pen. Please have those handy, so that you can take notes, get yourself a beverage, a snack, make yourself comfortable. Along the bottom of your screen, you'll notice a dashboard. The chat function is one that we will use several times during this session. So please make sure you can locate that, and please be sure you're writing to everyone. That way, it's not just the panelists who can see your comments, but other participants as well. You'll also notice a separate Q&A function. This is intended for questions that you have of a specific speaker. So if there's a certain content-related question you'd like to ask one of our speakers, please type it there in the Q&A, and our speakers are prepared to respond to those questions. And then these reactions are really fun and keep things lively. So as you're listening in, please use the reactions. There are different emoticons there that you can use. There comes a heart. Feel free to try that out now so that you know how it works. Excellent. Here we go. All right. The 3 main goals that we've had for our whole conference are the ones you see on your screen. First of all, we're wanting to celebrate transformation practitioners and learn about their concrete cases. We'll have cases today from Ethiopia, from India and Indonesia, and from Latin America. Another goal is to use the collective leadership compass, and specifically different lenses in that compass, for enhancing aliveness in our collaborations. So we've looked at enhancing aliveness in partnerships on Monday, in communities of practice on Wednesday, and today we'll be asking that question of how to further enhance collaborations in transformation networks. This in turn is intended to be a very applied session in which we want to build further capacity for transformation literacy among the group here, among participants. Literacy meaning a language, a shared set of tools that we're applying to bring about transformation at different levels on different topics. So moving on here, we've also, in parallel with the goals, how do we achieve those goals best? We've come up with these 4 conference norms that we request that we all follow. We don't have time to co-create these norms together right now, but rather if we could abide by these, we feel like we'll have a very rich exchange. First of all, embodying respect in all our interactions, including patience with any possible technical glitches. When you have a chance to express your views in the text chat or the breakout groups, we kindly ask that you do so in a clear and a concise way, leaving also room for other people to make comments. And listen with an attitude of seeking to understand one another, looking for the meaning in what others are saying. And finally, related to that, suspending your own judgments and remaining fully open to others' perspectives. That's often how learning can happen best. So getting into our program here, we're in this welcome and introduction phase. We're also going to then move into presentations from our speakers, followed by breakout sessions and reporting and reflecting. I want to signal now that this is the final session of 3 for this year's conference. And so it's special in the sense that we're going to add a half an hour to watch a short video, first of all, from last Friday when we had the in-person kickoff for this event in Potsdam, Germany. We're also going to be joined by one of Collective Leadership Institute's co-directors, Elizabeth Kuhn, is going to offer us a wrap-up of the conference at the end, reflecting back on the speakers we had Monday, Wednesday, and also today through the Collective Leadership Compass. So I encourage you to stay for the whole session. It's very rich and multifaceted. So let's settle in here. I'd love to start by celebrating the diversity of participants in the room. So if you would, in the text chat, simply write the country where you're calling in from. Where are you located? And then enjoy reading what you see. I'll stop sharing my screen here for a moment. And I encourage you just to type that into the text chat. Here they come now. I've got Mexico, United States, Spain, Cambodia. Chalpon is in Germany, originally from Kyrgyzstan. And here we go. We do have a group in Kiev. We're going to come to you in a moment. Germany, in Bonn, nice. A number of places in Germany, also from Uzbekistan and Russia and Indonesia. Excellent. This is very exciting. I would like to invite our watch party from Kiev to come to the stage here. My colleague Mariana Zawiska has convened a group there in Kiev to join us in this conference. Mariana, over to you, please. Could you say who's in there?
I will just join like here, and in a moment we'll show back the room. But we are now, I don't know, 12, 13 people sitting in Kiev, so mostly professionals from development sector and humanitarian sector. So happy to join this global event, and yeah, we are enjoying the Friday afternoon and going to celebrate the end of the Transformation Literacy Week.
Oh, lovely. Mariana, can you show us the room one more time? And let's get a nice wave. Hello, welcome, Kiev. It's excellent to have you with us. Thank you for joining our conference. The group in Kiev is going to be listening in to all the presentations, and then they'll be able to join the different breakout groups in smaller groups. So you might have 2 or 3 or 4 people from Kiev in the breakout group. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy being together with one another there and enjoying the conference itself. I want to move on to a second check-in question, if I may. So let's get even more into the topic. We've shared countries. We've shared the fact that we've got this watch party from Kiev. And let's move on to this one to get into the topic a bit more. So give this a moment of thought. What is one way in which you think collective action through networks can transform societal systems? Today, we're looking at transformation networks. We're looking at meta collaborations. What is one way that networks can help us transform systems? So give that a moment of thought. And then again, please type your response into the text chat. I think Mariana will be busy typing multiple responses from Kiev. Let's see if she can keep up. All right. Anna says, building bridges between people and organizations. Others are reflecting. We talk a lot about networks, but what can they really do in terms of transformation? Helena, together we are stronger. Jiska says, empathy and mutual understanding. Diverse voices for one cause are very powerful. Douglas talks about synergizing energy for change. Increasing care, says Tegan. It brings synergy and collective action. Thank you, Tadesse. And Teresa says, learning from each other on a larger scale. Chalpon reflects through the richness that diversity of everything gives us. Thank you, Daniela. Learn from other experiences, avoid certain failures, become smart with resources. Okay, here we go. Karen, good to see you, building on common values and passion. Anna is with us. I can't keep up anymore. This is great. Try to follow along yourself. Building the future we want. Being inclusive. Thank you. Experiencing that your group is not alone, but part of something far bigger. Okay, fascinating. We're going to be picking up on many of these ideas, many of these sentiments as we move through the program today. So it falls to me to attempt a definition of transformation networks and introduction of meta collaboration. And then I'll share a bit about the collective leadership compass as a tool for listening to our speakers and observing patterns in what they're sharing with us. So let me start here. One of the Sustainable Development Goals that Collective Leadership Institute focuses on in particular are these partnerships for the goals. The SDGs are complex systems challenges and different topics, from water to climate to health and so on. In terms of transformation networks, what we see here is that you might have a particular topic like education, taking just one of the SDGs, where there are all kinds of partnerships, initiatives, like we had on Monday especially, in different places of the world. Now, if they are each of these partnerships, each of these initiatives is having a positive local impact, on education in this case. The moment they start networking with one another, we start to activate some of what you were sharing in the text chat, some of the exchange, the learning, identifying best practices, finding the most creative ways forward for doing and being in these networks. Now they can be regional networks, they can be networks that span continents, they can be global South and global North networks. These kinds of connections, we believe, are very important for transformation. And when we look a little bit closely, whatever the topic might be, gender equality, reducing inequalities, reducing poverty, we feel that transformation happens when we are connecting people, connecting partnerships and networks around a specific issue and/or a region. We're creating new ways of thinking, new ways of being, and finding solutions together. And finally, we're going beyond a reform-based mentality. We're not just reforming the status quo because it's often quite broken. We're working towards applying approaches aligned with principles of aliveness. So aliveness, we can look to nature and notice the patterns there when a natural ecosystem is thriving. We can apply those kinds of principles of aliveness also to our social systems and notice what are the innovative approaches, what are the very traditional approaches that are helping enliven the work that we do, enliven these networks for transformative change. Now, if we move on to this next slide, what is a transformation network? How do we define it? Generally, we're looking at multi-stakeholder networks, multi-stakeholder initiatives, partnerships, and other networks and communities of practice. So what we've been talking about on Monday, what we talked about on Wednesday in terms of these partnerships, communities of practice, a broader transformation network generally includes many, many of both. This also is allowing for visionary and strategic multiplicity. This means there's a diversity of ways of living the transformative goal across the network. A network does not seek to have just one standardized way to bring about a certain vision, but rather seeks to open up potential, open up decentralized action across a broader region on a particular topic. This means that we can go to scale, that there are a diversity of contexts, a diversity of approaches for bringing about transformation. And finally, a transformation network is built with intention and strategy. They don't just happen. And so being intentional about creating these connections, these relationships among partnerships, networks, communities is really essential for the work. Now, how do we go about not only building a transformation network, but really bringing it to life? What we've seen in our work is that transformation networks come to life by building strategic and meaning-making connections for collaborative action. So across those different partnerships that we're talking about, across different networks, across existing communities. This is what we mean by a meta collaboration. We're taking these individual and sometimes isolated systems of actors and connecting them together in a broader meta collaboration. A transformation network does not dictate the approach because those need to be diverse. It does say that connection is important, that exchange is important, that mutual inspiration is important. And what I'd like to share with you is this network enabler lens in the collective leadership compass is a lens that we've designed to help conveners and members of this transformation network be intentional. Like we said, be intentional about building the network. How is it designed? How is it enlivened? What pattern currently exists in a network, and how might it be further enhanced going forward? So these network enablers, this is one of many lenses in the compass. This network enabler lens is specifically designed to look at transformation networks. We always have 6 dimensions around key areas. So related to future possibilities, in networks, these purpose-building narratives are often really essential. What is the bigger story that we're telling ourselves? Where are we coming from? Where are we going as a network? The members in a thriving network are aligning around this purpose and are contributing to the network's broader impact and impact strategy. Around engagement, what we've seen is that dynamic structures are important. So not permanent structures, but dynamic ones. So here, self-organization, we've said these decentralized approaches and diverse approaches, self-organization around common interests ensures ownership for change and high levels of engagement. It also ensures innovation, that there are different ways of doing things. And around innovation itself, these novel pathways, a network, like you've said in the check-in, can unleash these creative approaches. And there's continuous expertise building to strengthen the knowledge base in a network. That's something that can really be alive and contribute to the good work that everyone is doing in that network. Related to humanity, we see value creation as very important. So the members of the network, they're mutually acknowledging each other's expertise. experience, perspectives, the lived experience that each network member, that each partnership, that each community of practice offers to the bigger transformation network. We're coming from a place of respecting one another's dignity in this way, and always seeking to learn from one another because of that diversity. Related to collective intelligence, dialogic exchange is important. Here, the communication exchanges, we're leveraging that diversity I was just talking about and working to create a sense of cohesion in the network, that people don't feel isolated in the work they do, but rather feel connected, feel a sense of belonging to, like someone said in the text chat, to something bigger. And finally, related to wholeness, contextual impact. So the relevance of the network's purpose and the impact strategy is embedded in larger transformations. So individually, I don't feel alone, but also the work that we're doing is contributing to something bigger, is contributing back to where we started, this purpose-building narrative. What is this bigger sustainability narrative, this equity narrative, this justice narrative that we're telling? What is the story that we're trying to narrate into reality for humans on planet Earth? Where have we been? Where are we going? We're having impact that, yes, may be local, but is contributing to a global level impact, a global level story. All right. Let me pause there. I'll stop sharing my screen for a moment. There we go. And just see if I look to the text chat and see if there are any questions coming in. Teresa, I noticed one from Duncan Okaka around fostering collaboration. Thank you for your comment here. Collaboration within a network is fostering innovation and experimentation. Yes, allowing members to test new approaches and pilot projects. Thank you very much. By working together, organizations can leverage complementary strengths and resources to tackle complex challenges more effectively. Thank you for that comment. Much appreciated. All right. Let's check my timing here. I think we're doing pretty well in the program. What I'd like to do now then is I want to invite you, as we move into this next segment of the program, I'd like to invite you to use these network enablers. These network enablers here to listen to the speakers. So use these, we offer these as a framework, as a pattern framework for you to listen and notice when one of the speakers is talking about narrative, when she might be talking about impact or novel pathways, when she's talking about humanity and value creation. So I would encourage you to have your notebook on hand, and as people are speaking, please take notes. That will help the breakout groups work in a really smooth way. And my colleague Teresa will also offer links in the text chat to this slide and to the speaker slides for your reference. So let's move into the presentations. We have 3 inspiring women with us from diverse places around the world. Daniela is based in Bolivia, and she's a communication and marketing consultant with a focus on social entrepreneurship and impact investment. We'll get to hear from her on building bonds, strategic communication as the key to intertwining Latin American social entrepreneurship ecosystems. So she's going to take a regional-wide approach, all of Latin America, and looking specifically at social entrepreneurship and communication. Daniela, we're really pleased to have you with us. We also have Jiska Gojowczyk with us. She is project coordinator at Südwind, that's South Wind in German, Institute in Germany. And she's going to be talking to us about reaching, GOSH through transnational dialogue. So the acronym stands for Gender Transformative Approaches to Occupational Safety and Health. And she'll be describing different settings in textiles and shoe manufacture in both India and Indonesia. So thanks for being with us, Jiska. And we also have Beatriz Waldmann. She's project manager at NABU in Germany. NABU is the Nature and Biodiversity Conservation Union. And she's going to talk to us about this multi-stakeholder partnership as a tool for meta collaboration, the case of Lake Tana Stakeholders Alliance in Ethiopia. So I'm going to start, we'll start with Beatriz, and then we'll go to Jiska and to Daniela. Beatriz, I'm going to stop sharing my slides because I understand you'd like to share them yourself. There's Beatriz. Let's give her a warm welcome. And
Hey
the floor
everyone,
is
thank you,
yours.
Dominic, for the really nice presentation. I was impressed myself by the speaker, the way you put it. It's really nice. I'm going to share my screen with you. Is it working?
Could you please use full screen? Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Beatriz. 8 minutes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to start my presentation by quickly introducing you the title of the presentation, the multiple stakeholder partnership is a tool for meta collaboration. This was already the topic of the first day here of the Transformation Literacy Week, and I'm going to present the case of the Lake Tana Stakeholder Alliance in Ethiopia. Today we have a VIP guest also in the participants, I noticed, which is our local regional manager from this project. His name is Tadesse Adko. So if you have any questions for me, or if you have any questions to Tadesse, who is there literally implementing the project, then feel free to write it in the question and answers. The NABU is the oldest and biggest environmental conservation NGO in Germany. And through this collaboration with Ethiopia, the NABU Ethiopia was created, and they are an independent NGO. This project is the second phase. The Lake Tana Stakeholders Alliance is the second phase of the first one that's already started in 2019, and it's funded by the BMZ, which is the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany. The Lake Tana Biosphere Reserve was founded, it was designated as an UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in 2015, and it's been covering 700,000 hectares and is inhabited by over 2.5 million people, 2.4 to 2.5. It has unique features. It has distinct fish species, for example, tilapia, which is worldwide cultivated in aquaculture. It's native from this area. It has wetlands with papyrus, cultural historic sites, especially regarded the religious history of the region, fertile cultivation areas, and it is the source of the Nile River, one of the sources of the Blue Nile. Through populational growth, poverty, unregulated waste management, untreated wastewater, and a lot of other issues, this is affecting the natural resources of the region, also the inadequate use of these ecosystem services. Therefore, we started and also the lack of I didn't put it in the slide, but the lack of interaction between the different relevant stakeholders of the area and the overlapping of political responsibilities also created a very big gap in which nobody knew who was responsible for. So there was no responsibility regarding the inadequate use of those ecosystem services. With this idea in mind, through many years of working in this region, we had the initiative to start a multiple stakeholder partnership, which was called Water for Life. And now it's been shifted to Lake Tana Stakeholder Alliance so that it serves also in the future as an umbrella alliance for other forms of organizations in the region. So through this cooperation, it was the first time that we created a partnership or a network that was parallel to the government in the region, including these decision-making processes and having the representation of underrepresented sectors and groups, for example, women and indigenous minorities and youth. This partnership also managed to strengthen and to even enable the relationship from decision-making actors. And this is very important because the region is very big and it has a lot of different actors that are working parallel into a lot of same topics. So this has enabled them to connect and to join their efforts and resources towards a more effective conservation of the nature. With this partnership, we have also created working groups. Through these working groups, we have managed to connect the grassroots actors through the implementation of these pilot activities to the high-level decision-making powers, which was a really nice outcome from this partnership. Throughout these pilot activities, we also promoted circular economy with a lot of really nice, interesting projects. For example, the establishment of a paper recycling center, which was the first one in the region, and sustainable agriculture. We created possibilities for improved livelihoods through the sustainable activities as well. And in 2023, I'm running, not to lose the 8 minutes. We have a new phase started, which will aim in the institutionalization of the multiple stakeholder partnership and creating self-financing structures for itself, increased participation of minority groups, and bottom-up tailored trainings for communities, among a lot of other activities. So let's give you a little bit of an idea why we would call this a meta-collaboration at all. So we do have a board and a core group which makes the guidance and the decision-making through this partnership. Those are 15 actors at regional level, which can comprehend, you can read it on the slides, many different institutions. This board reports to and exchange with the working groups which implement field activities, what we talked about in the last slide. Inside of each one of those working groups is a series of activities, including ecosystem restoration, combating illegal fisheries, also a lot of trainings, and circular economy, a really big component, and also advocacy, for example, for banning or starting an initiative to ban plastic bags at regional and maybe, who knows, national level in Ethiopia. We will also establish the membership through this MSP, this partnership, which is something that is still not established, but there will be relevant institutions that will be able to finance and also guide the different interests of this relationship. They are all connected between themselves, and this is what we call the governance structure of this collaboration, but it doesn't stop there. NABU Ethiopia will also offer the coordination, the management, the moderation process, and all kinds of organizational issues to this governance structure, and the NABU regional office in Africa, together with the headquarters in Berlin, where I'm standing. We also give support to all of this structure. This structure also has the participation and collaboration of other actors of the region, which can be of all different levels, international, national, regional, local, and also the population. So it looks here organized, but it's actually a really, really big network that was built. So to give you a little bit of an idea, we will focus here on the working group 1. And since the theme of this Transformation Literacy Week is the Localizing SDGs, we're going to give you one example of one of the many activities that we have been doing throughout those years.
Beatriz, we can go for 2, maximum 3 more minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'll manage. So the ecosystem restoration started because of the deforestation. Not sustainable deforestation of certain regions was causing high erosion and landslides. There was an impact in agriculture, nutrient depletion, loss of biodiversity, and it caused an impact on water bodies. Through the sedimentation, it would cause flooding. And this is especially relevant for this region because here you can see the Lake Tana and one island. And it's not only about the environment, but it's also about the life of people. And in these islands, you have religious authorities that have been living here for centuries and are a very unique part of history, not only for the region, but also for mankind. And this flooding is threatening even their lives. So in 2021, the renaturation process started in 28 villages. I'm focusing here in one of them, so you have one idea, but it's in 28 villages. The community were highly involved, they were very interested, and through this interest, the farmers were asking the authorities, the municipal level, the administration level, to invest even more, to expand their areas. And they have seen the ecological value that they were gaining. So they were helping. And by the end of the project, you could see a forest in this region. So you saw this photo before, and this is how it's looking now. I'm not going to focus here so much because we don't have it. So just as a wrapping up, we have seen this network before. So this working group, only this one example, connects to all of those different structures inside of the government structure. And therefore, this meta collaboration contributes to the smallest activity inside of this partnership contributes to bring a bigger, this partnership contributes to bringing those small activities into a much bigger regional and local perspective in a bigger context. The connection between those different stakeholders promotes a lot of opportunities, as for example, resource mobilization, upscaling in different regions, diverse expertise, risk sharing and mitigation. The meta collaboration provides also a platform for the stakeholders to align their policies, strategies, and action towards common goals. And involving those stakeholders in different decision-making process creates a sense of ownership. So I can already give you a spoiler that this activity has been asked so much by those partners that we have again increased this in the second phase of the project. With the Localizing SDGs, I have selected some of them here that apply to this activity in itself, but even you can imagine that those the project has many other activities, and in the end of the day, it applies to almost all of the SDGs. And that's it. I'm sorry if I took more time. I ran a little bit through the slides in the end, but I hope you have had an idea. If you have any questions, you can ask me, you can ask Tadesse, and thank you for listening.
Beatriz, that was fantastic. Thank you for the good work that you and NABU and stakeholders in the Lake Tana Basin are supporting and advancing together. The story that you shared was quite compelling around these purpose-building narratives. There were a clear set of goals and strategies. The structures that you currently have in place, clearly thoughtful around governance. And then the novel pathways that I was hearing, these multi-stakeholder approaches seems in itself novel when there was such a gap in the stakeholder landscape in terms of responsibility for this lake and its watershed. What touched me was the photo of the island, and then some of these religious figures that have been living there for millennia, you said, centuries, around creating value for people and for nature. That stood out for me. So thank you very kindly. And you're right that people can ask further questions in the Q&A, and they can choose to join you in a breakout group as well. It looks like there is one question. Yes, Teresa, what do we have as a question for Beatriz?
There was a question asked by Ismail, what world-class programs has your work been tested in? So maybe Beatriz, you can just maybe use the chat function.
Yeah, that would be great. Ismail, thank you for the question. You'll see a response there shortly. Okay, Katrine, I would like to invite Jiska to the stage, please. And I'll share the slides for you, Jiska. Let's give her also a warm welcome as she comes forward. There we go. Nice. All right, Jiska, thank you for being here and for talking about your work that you're supporting in Indonesia and India. The floor is yours, and please keep it to about 8 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you also for the opportunity to talk about our project for better gender transformative occupational health and safety in the garment and footwear industry. And I will try to show you with a few examples how we work together across the national borders of India, Indonesia, Germany, and many more. Click. Before I do so, let me very shortly introduce my home base, which is the Südwind Institute. Südwind is located in Bonn in Germany, and since more than 30 years, it operates as a research and as a lobby organization, striving to contribute to more justice in economic relations across the globe. As the Südwind Institute, click please, we are part of a team of 4 organizations who initiated this project, which is the Trade Union Rights Center in Indonesia, CVDEP in India, and on the German side, the Südwind Institute in Femnet. In our project that brings us together today, our goal is to improve the health of workers in the garment and footwear industry, especially women and other marginalized groups, which make up actually a large majority of the workforce in those 2 sectors. And we know that so far, they often cannot decide to protect their health in the workplace and at home. And the surroundings make it very difficult for them to influence the situation positively. We see large power imbalances and dependencies in highly globalized value chains, which makes actually our work across borders so important. And we see that women and other marginalized groups are still extremely underrepresented in decision-making bodies, in factories and other structures, in most parliaments, in courts worldwide, and unfortunately also in trade unions as well. Our strategies in the project are that we create knowledge on gender-specific health risks and the needs of the relevant stakeholders, that we establish dialogue structures between different stakeholders, and that in those structures, we develop guidelines that are then implemented in pilots in factories. And we have started roughly 2.5 years ago, and we are about to plan the second phase starting in 2025. Next slide. As this session focuses on networks and collaboration, let me explain to you how we organize in the project. And I will start with the national level. So on this slide, this would be the bottom left. And colleagues from CVDEP in India and TUIC in Indonesia have organized regional core groups that bring together gender and health experts, trade unionists, and grassroots organizations. And they are very strategic also in bringing in representatives from the business side in those core groups. They meet regularly to discuss the major activities of the project, such as the studies that were conducted or the formulation of the guidelines that are implemented in the factories. And at the same time, of course, in all national contexts, there are many bilateral conversations, for example, with policymakers. Then we have dialogue that is more transnational. It involves brands, fashion brands, retailers, other less localized experts and international organizations, civil society actors from different countries working on similar topics. And most of this transnational dialogue is bilateral, but we have also created an online working group on the specific topic of gender data and OSH. And then we have created an online format which we call International Dialogue Forum, which really brings together all the different stakeholders from the different places. And as we have established it, there is a public part that is open to everyone who wants to join and learn. And then there is a part with only selected representatives being together in a digital space of the different stakeholder groups. And during those online meetings, we begin to start a conversation across production countries. So we give an opportunity, for example, to brand representatives to listen to health experts from both regions. trade unionists from both countries, from both production countries, can speak to each other in those rooms, etc. And one of the success stories is that about a year ago, we created a common vision for the industry, which you can see on the next slide, and which really reflects each stakeholder's perspective also on the future that we want to work together for. So I will not share the text, but at least the picture for you to enjoy, which was illustrated by an illustrator from Indonesia who took part in the meeting. And next slide, please. What is always very important to us when we organize the meetings is that there are spaces across country contexts that are safe and that help to overcome boundaries. And especially in the closed sessions, we also want especially the female worker representatives to have a voice and make sure that they are listened to, because most of the time, as I explained, that does not happen. And in the public spaces, we also create opportunities for workers to talk about their perspectives and about their everyday lives. That I would like to share in this round, that this does not come for free. It's not always easy, and has not always been easy to achieve. We invest a lot of organizational resources in making this happen. It sounds simple and obvious, but just assuring translation and convening in 3 languages with all the technical glitches and the time it takes, it requires a lot of patience and really also learning from everyone. But success is there, and I think we can be confident that we have created awareness, for example, on representation, but also topic-wise on topics like mental and reproductive health in the supply chain. And we have created opportunities doing what we did to learn from each other and to move forward together. Next slide. But of course, we still have a long way to go to transform globalized footwear and garment production. And let me just give you one crucial example. Still, for the most workers in both production regions, it can be super rational not to protect their health. For example, not taking breaks to drink water or go to the bathroom, because they still face very high production pressure in the shop floor to meet production targets. And there are management practices that sanction negatively if groups do not meet those targets. So to change this, we need much more engagement from business actors across the national boundaries. And in the dialogue with factory management, we, and especially also the colleagues in the production regions, still hear that it would be a prerequisite to change those purchasing practices of brands and retailers that really put the pressure on the factories. And we have not reached that yet. And we may also need more regulatory changes in the consumption countries in Europe to support that goal. But we are moving forward, seeing the network that we have started to create, to grow and to intensify. And we're looking really forward to continuing the work and continuing the discussion to reach our further goals. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jiska. Let's give her a round of applause for that input. I appreciate how you were at once celebrating successes of this meta collaboration across 2 countries and being open and vulnerable about some of the challenges, like the challenge of convening across multiple languages online and the challenge of then addressing potential regulatory changes. Those sound really important. Thank you for sharing around narratives. I heard there a clear goal around footwear and garment, these gender sensitive and gender transformative approaches to occupational safety and health. I also saw in value creation, I heard you talking very much about value for women, and not only that, but getting women into decision-making roles. The mental health also aspects seemed very important in terms of, we're not just talking about physical health, but also mental health. A lot of innovation, also working online, the gender data in terms of novel pathways and dialogue structures. Definitely there I heard you talking quite a bit about different levels of dialogue structures and different core teams, project teams, also internationally and thematically. It sounds like those structures are well in place, but can also evolve in terms of topics that might come up. I'll pause there, but I just want to continue to encourage participants to take notes according to the network enablers. Teresa has continued to post the speaker slides and links to the network enabler slide in the text chat. Jiska, if there are any questions that come up in the Q&A or the text chat, please address those. And participants, you can choose to join Jiska in the breakout group if you want to go deeper. Thanks very much. Let's go to our third and final speaker for the day. This is Daniela Bolivar from Bolivia. Daniela, I understand that you'd like to share your slides with this focus on communication and social entrepreneurship networks in Latin America. You're very welcome to share those slides, and you have 8 minutes, please, for your presentation. Thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Of course, I am the one that is super happy to be here and to be invited to this conference. So the title is Building Bonds, Strategic Communication as the Key to Intertwining Latin American Social Entrepreneurship Ecosystem. And I'm pretty much going to focus in communication, but it's like very complex. And I will try to speed up. Maybe it's going to be confusing, but I hopefully you're going to find sense in the drawing that I made. I always like to start with a big thank you. Thank you, gracias, vielen Dank to everybody who support me, especially the CLI team since day one, with scholarship, with support, with just being there, sending emails, even without me replying when I was like in a really bad shape. To my rainbow squirrel, that is my husband, that doesn't always like to be mentioned, but he's my cable a tierra, so he's basically the one that supports me every day. And to my family and friends that always believe in the crazy things that I do. And usually I take a lot of their time to do my crazy projects. So who am I? And I think this is very important for my presentation because I'm a graphic designer. I don't own a company. I am a freelance in general. I'm a former social entrepreneur. I successfully failing in building an upcycling business twice. So that put me in a position of really experiencing how difficult it is to be a social entrepreneur and how often people don't understand what you're doing. You're not an NGO, you're not only a for-profit traditional company. And then I started doing strategic communication as a consultant, but only for impact-first organizations. And also do visual facilitation because drawing is something that allows me to think, to strategize, and to help me build narratives so people can collaborate together. So what was the framework? The framework for this talk, and I've been facilitating, being a teacher, I've been training social entrepreneurs, and once I found CLI, they gave me like a framework. They gave me this compass that allowed me to bring sense to the many things that I've been doing. And when I received the enabling factors for collaboration, it also made a lot of sense for me to prepare this presentation because I basically, as a freelance, I work with several projects, and I don't do a specific project only social and social entrepreneurship, but I work with different organizations, and I work in several projects. And I'm just a designer, right? I'm just the communication, part of the communication team. So what do you do as a communicationist? You don't lead the programs. Somebody else is managing the programs. But there are three main things in the presentation that will allow you to make sense of the work that I do. First of all, what's the concepts? Social entrepreneurship can mean different things in different contexts. So social entrepreneurship in the US, in the Europe, has a very established concept and is very well known. But when you translate this to Spanish, it doesn't make sense at all. It's something that is like a paradox. You cannot be social and then you can be a company. So there are two opposite things. And the social has a very socialist connotation as well, like a very leftist connotation. So it pretty much you are building something that is not possible, right? So the concept is very important. And what I was working with IDEA is a think tank in Costa Rica. And usually they are very misunderstood, but these organizations are creating papers that basically are challenging the sustainability concept that comes from top down and explaining how Latin America does sustainable development. So basically what's the problem is that all the management and theories about how you shape a business and how you should manage a business comes from like a top and a middle class type of examples and companies from developed countries that only apply to 1% of the companies in Latin America. So basically everything that is a concept around base of the pyramid concepts is only based in a very small portion of the population that lives in these very developed countries. And basically, this is the type of markets that we find in Latin America. And when people with, I will talk about stereotypes, right? But when people come with these more developed lenses to our countries and they see these markets and they see informality, it's pretty much like, oh, this is very folkloric, oh, so nice, this is so disorganized, but this is markets, right? And we frame them as informal because informal is a no concept. Informal means that this is no formal, but what is informality? 70% of Bolivia's market is informal. So, and it works. There's value, there's people sharing, there's an offer and there's a demand. So we're basically not understanding, and we cannot use these concepts to understand what is happening when then we talk about social entrepreneurship. So my personal journey was, I never wanted to be a graphic designer, but I opted that because I love to design, to draw. I love communication, but I don't like to work in this corporate type of settings, and also don't want to work in NGOs because they tend to be very, let's say, leftist. And you know, it's difficult because it's like development for the sake of development, right? And then you have like a very privileged point of view to work with NGOs. So also this is like a very personal statement, right? And then what was the scope? Of course, I'm from Bolivia, but then I had the chance to move and study in Costa Rica and the University for Peace. So I forced myself to have to study in English without even having the level to do it, but because the English will open my pretty much the market, and how can I understand like the very difference about the concept. So I focus on LATAM, but then of course, so at some point I had to come back to Bolivia for my family, and yeah, and since then every time I work, I try to do something in Bolivia. Right now I work in an organization called Roots of Impact. They work in on developing innovative finance for social entrepreneurs. So really they're breaking through. This is a breakthrough, basically. They're invented this concept about impact-linked finance. So how can you incentivize impact so you can help social enterprises to grow? So my narrative right now is, how many minutes do I have, Dominic? 2 more minutes. Great. because I'm going to be very fast. So these are the concepts throughout that change throughout the different projects and the different scopes of my work, right? So we started a big idea talking about social entrepreneurship, and this was inclusive. We understood it as inclusive markets and institutional failures. Then, when I was working with PES Latam, we talked about market-based solutions for the base of the pyramid. Then, when I was working with BC4A, a digital platform that was building social entrepreneurship network, like a digital network, we pretty much start building Latam nodes to understand who are the leaders. But we started finding like a new kind of actor that is called the ESOs, Entrepreneurship Organizations. And it's basically like a very abusive relationship, because you basically say, hey, we have funding for your entrepreneurs. Just give us your pipeline, your list of entrepreneurs, and we're going to give funding to the best one. So you pretty much abuse them. You don't give them money. And pretty much all these organizations are very underfunded. Then all these three experiences I replicated in Bolivia. So So I replicated in Bolivia. So we did Yo Emprendo. It was an open platform, a website, and say, let's find out like all these working groups are working in social or working in entrepreneurship in general, but let's put the sustainability lenses. Because if we talk about these three different concepts, nobody's going to understand it. And we basically rearrange the entire ecosystem and force them to collaborate in a Zoom call. We have like 80 people and say, let's get to know each other, because usually the stronger organizations that have experience are the ones that gets the funding, the funds, right? So if we want to change and if we want to work with social entrepreneurs, then we have to change the entire rules. Then I was hired as a consultant, and then we defined what was the evolution in the different Latin American countries about impact investment. What was the point where impact investment was really like the kind of that concept that helped and support social enterprises. So we basically took that evolution and said, like, three things need to happen in Bolivia if we want to support social entrepreneurs, start talking about social entrepreneurship and support them. And we did a conference that blend the venture capital sector with the impact investment sector. So I prepared this conference, and it was so nice because at the end, people that was more used to funding a startup that is like more in the corporate type of sector, we teach them how to talk about impact. And it was vice versa. To the people that was working in impact, they were like so unaware, there was so much more money available, but they need another type of language to talk with them, right? So then what we did is like Bolivia became the spotlight, and we partnered with other underdeveloped regions in developed countries. So for example, the north-south of Peru, the north of Chile, the north of Argentina, and Paraguay that have similar markets than Bolivia, that have 70% of informality, but you don't think at these countries as something that they are underdeveloped. But if you find it in these close regions like our frontier with Bolivia, you see a lot of similarities. So you can work very similar with this and created like nodes. So yeah, part of my work is, yes, it's communication. And communication is like same as writing the chorus of a song, because you have to play with different things. You cannot communicate everything at once. You have to build relationships. You have to create trust, and you have to keep aliveness if you really want to work in different ecosystems. So what I did in the meta collaboration part, instead of putting all the icons of the enabler concept, I draw something that allowed me to strategically see how I was meeting this collaboration throughout since 2016. So this is not me in an organization. It was me working in 7, 8 different projects in parallel, doing this by myself, because I truly believe that you can make it. So first we say, yeah, LATAM is just, we say, yeah, yes, it's a circle. Yeah, LATAM is pretty much like the same region, but it's not, right? Then we understand LATAM like country by country, and we understand that each country has different nodes. And then we try to connect these dots and the different leaders that pretty much have the same concept, that at least we can talk about like these 6 different contexts in similar ways. In Bolivia, what we did is disrupt these nodes that were like really clustered, and we try to break them. So we start mapping and understanding that were a lot of working groups already working in entrepreneurship, but nobody was really talking about impact and sustainability. And finally, what we did is more like a spiral effect, that this conference allow us to mix up all the actors again. So we can have private sector, NGO sectors, and the public sector that are working with entrepreneurs that want to attract investment in a country that is very risky. But at the end, they were happy because they were all talking about the same thing. They all want to see Bolivia as a developed country, and you need entrepreneurship for that. So these are the 6 conclusions. Similar challenges in nations' social entrepreneurship ecosystem. So it's pretty much the same. The same is happening in the south of Peru. Nobody cares. Everybody just focuses in Lima because it's more developed. Intermediaries matter, and they need funding to avoid this abusive relationship with big NGOs and big cooperation programs. There are big problems to solve. Of course, climate change is pretty much driving all the money into that, but also we want to big inclusive markets, and there's like a big gaps, and we need private money and in very risky places. And for replication factors is we need to embedded impact practices into more traditional entrepreneurial support organizations. So that's key. Make more with no money is essential, because all of these regions, they don't have budgets. So we had to become really smart, and we did amazing things without money. So it is possible. And moderators matter, right? People like me that sadly we don't work with an organization that is that paid me to do this enabling work. And we had to figure out a way to be neutral and to find funding for these enablers, because at the end, all the work that we did is kind of faded out, because then one organization took the initiative, they took the money, and they lose all the trust that we won in 3 years. So yeah, hopefully the story continues, and hopefully I can be the glue again. But yeah, that's the story. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. Daniela, I really appreciate the way in which you could seamlessly weave your personal story into these larger level systems transformations that you're talking about across Latin America. I heard you talking about the value of inclusive and informal economy early on, the innovation around linking market-based solutions to sustainability. I think the dialogue platform, Yo Emprendo, sounds very innovative as well, a way for social entrepreneurs in Bolivia to engage in exchange, and then that bigger focus on impact, without forgetting the challenges of resources, whether it's financial resources or also just our own personal resources and sense of aliveness. I think you've really highlighted how patterns of aliveness apply at all levels, including the individual level, and that we have to ask that question of what makes me feel alive, and how can I maintain that in a sustainable way while I'm doing my work with others. So thank you for those connections.
Thank you for wrapping up. So good.
Well, we're not done. We have the opportunity now to go into some more depth. I would like to move us into the breakout rooms. And so I'll share my slides here. The idea here is to reflect on the notes that you've been taking around the network enablers. We'll move into breakout rooms that will be about 25 minutes in duration. And here, your facilitator, so there'll be, and Catherine, you can bring everyone on stage if you wish. We can have our speakers here. We have Katarina will be joining Beatriz. We have Teresa will be there with Jiska as a facilitator, and Douglas together with Daniela. Your facilitator will guide a discussion that helps draw out the key points that you heard around the network enablers. You'll have a documentation slide that's interactive, and I encourage everyone to write directly on the slide at the beginning of your breakout group. Once a pattern has emerged, your facilitator, again, will guide a discussion around the pattern that you might be seeing, what might be particular strengths from the story that you heard, what might be possible entry points for further enlivening the transformation network or meta collaboration. The speakers will be there. The speakers are initially listening. They want to hear how you have interpreted their case. And one key thing you'll find in the text chat, the links to their slides. So I do request that you click on the slide first, on the slide deck first in the text chat, before we move into the breakout group. So in a moment, I think Catherine will be able to open the breakout groups and you'll be able to choose. I'll show you how to do that. This is the documentation slide, just so you understand what you'll be looking at. You'll be invited to write your responses in these speech bubbles and then drag them to the appropriate network enabler around the compass. And then to join the breakout groups, you'll find an icon at the bottom of your screen. It looks like this. Go ahead and click on that icon. You do need to be logged in with the Zoom app. Unfortunately, if you're using a browser at the moment, you're not able to join the breakout room. So go ahead and click on the breakout room icon and then choose a room according to which speakers case you want to discuss. Your audio and video will be muted when you join, but we encourage you to turn your video on. You can also choose to rename yourself if you wish to add your country so that others know. Catherine, let's please go ahead and open up the rooms so that people can choose. We'll have 25 minutes to join. We're coming back into plenary. Catherine, does it seem like we're all here, or is the breakout group still open?
No, we're all here.
Excellent. Welcome back. I know that was a relatively short amount of time. I recognize that the speakers only had a short amount of time to initially present. Many of you are seeing the Collective Leadership Compass for the first time and applying one of its many lenses to these transformation networks. So first of all, thank you for trusting in this process. Thank you for making the leap with us to give this a try. We all know that it's a different thing to have a session like this where we're practicing with the compass on real cases versus any of our speakers taking the compass and applying it with their own core team in the work that they do. We find there's value in both, and so that's why we're giving this a try for some exposure to our methodologies. It's time for me to invite our facilitators to present back. Each will have 3 minutes, and we do need to keep it very tight, facilitators, so that we can stay on the agenda. 3 minutes, just please briefly highlight the pattern that emerged around the compass, 1 or 2 strengths, and 1 or 2 possible onward entry points for further enlivening this collaboration. Let's go in the order of our speakers. So that would be Katarina, and then Teresa, and then Douglas. And Katarina, I know that I'm meant to share your slides.
Thanks, Dominic. So first, once again, thanks Beatriz, but also Tadesse for being in this group and sharing also more information on their case, because I think what you can also see when you're looking a little bit of at the pattern which emerged around the enablers is the appreciation everyone in our group had towards this specific project. There were so many questions, but also a lot of felicitations for the project team, and questions around how, for example, a project like this can be replicated in another biosphere area, for example, in Madagascar. So I just want to highlight a little bit what came out of this discussion, and it really was that actually that we can see there is a really equilibrium around the compass, and actually that every enabler kind of had its space within this project. So that this project is meant to create livelihoods and a better futures for different kind of stakeholders, and is really working towards complementarity. So this was highlighted, and also that with the capacity building and also with the approach of focusing on every small stakeholder, an engagement of a very diverse group of stakeholders was possible in a structured way. And this really helped by the inclusion of underrepresented group. And yeah, I cannot go into much detail now, but Tadesse also explained very detailed how the project is doing it. And yeah, it's really, really good. And then when we go further towards innovation, it was also mentioned that this project actually is working on so many different levels. And it's not only about ecosystem services, but they're really trying also to focus on innovative approaches to foster livelihoods, biomass integration, creation of activities for specific marginalized groups. And this is actually really showing up the novel pathways to those communities. And this really goes then already into value creation, because with this creation of livelihood approaches for different stakeholders, we see a long-term impact for human and environmental transformation. And the participatory approach is also adding up to that they are really creating a network where everyone can sustain its livelihood, but not only humans, but also the environment. Around dialogic exchange, it was mentioned that the dialogic exchange is happening in a very well structured way with different working groups on different levels, and actually that this type of dialogue is increasing the ownership and the cohesion of the group, and that there are also formalized governance structures within the partnership, and this is also helping with the dialogic exchange. And finally, when it comes to contextual impact or wholeness, we can see the actions are local, but they're contributing to a larger picture, a more sustainable Lake Tana. It could be replicated somewhere else, taking into consideration, of course, always the very specific conditions. And farmers are directly involved. And just one maybe something which came up in the discussion was that actually this MSP maybe could work more into networks or become more visible if they are entering a political dialogue, and could strengthen a little bit the connections with local, but also the national government.
Mm-hmm.
Over.
All right. Thanks very much for this group's effort. This was one of the larger breakout groups, and you really produced a rich set of results there. Thank you, Katarina, for having facilitated there. Teresa, let's move right on to you, please. And Jiska, if you could please share your slides and your results very briefly in under 3 minutes.
Dominic, could you help me sharing the slides?
Yes,
on the screen?
You go ahead and start, and I'll get your slides made up.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so we were a pretty small group, but a very active one. And yeah, I'm happy to share our results. But first of all, of course, thank you for those who joined us. It was a very fruitful discussion. And I think what became very, very clear in the discussion, and also of course in the presentation as Jiska shared, is that overall it's a very bottom-up process, in the sense of that the team has taken a lot of time in really understanding the context by speaking with the women, the workers in the field, and really understand the challenges that they face, and truly understand like what needs to change, and like where are kind of like the the points where things need to transform. So we've seen that lots of time and resources was given to first of all understand the overall context very well. Studies were made, qualitative studies. Women workers' voices were heard, so that's a lot about dialogic exchange. So a lot of Jiska has also stressed how much time and resources and this needs, and how much time was invested in that. And what was very interesting to see is also, how the networks enablers also support each other, because of the fact that they took so much time for creating this information, or for collecting this information, and also developing media formats for hearing the workers' voices, such as newsletters and reports. That also really helped the engagement process. Because there is something substantial that they can share when they engage new members for the network. And same also with the guideline development that Jiska also talked about in the presentation. She said that even though the guidelines are not finalized yet, but the fact that they are developing them, and that this is something new, this is really helping them in the engagement process, and in showing that there's actually something substantial coming out. And another thing that was interesting is the whole vision development, the picture that they've created with the stakeholders together. Jiska also explained how, of course, now they have this product of like a picture and a text that was developed that is like a shared narrative, a purpose-building narrative that helps them moving forward. But she also explained how not only the product is important, but actually the process and the experience of getting there, of developing that vision, was super valuable and important, and really helped creating that shared value. I think what we've noticed, and what Jiska also mentioned, is what's still a little bit in the development process is like this impact in the overall process. That this is where they're moving towards now, and I think I wish them lots of luck, but I think they've built a really, really good basis with the other dimensions to move forward there. Thank you.
All right, let's show this group some appreciation. Even though it was a smaller group, it sounded like a very high quality conversation, and you moved around the compass quite nicely. Teresa, thanks for your facilitation and for the reporting back. Let's have our final reporting back from Douglas. Douglas, would you like to share your slides?
Sure. Dominic, we had a rich discussion. We had also a small group to talk about Daniela's really interesting initiative. You can't call it a project because it really was not a project. It was a proper networking activity. But we were joined by Ratna, Ralph, Temi, and Dominic joined us for a moment as well. I think there was a very good balance between the different network enablers. What came out, I think, was definitely a focus, or a sort of, a strengths in the axis along future possibilities in humanity, with value creation and purpose-building narratives. However, also everybody could hear quite clearly that there was a lot of novel pathways and innovation going on, including Danny gave us some further context, which was really about a sort of innovation within a dynamic structure, sort of a structural innovation, which also I think was really interesting. It seemed to me that the identification of Danny being a sort of a communicator and having communications be a very strong focus of her presentation. Interestingly, I think we all heard stuff that was less related to the dialogic exchange. Although I think that the communications within Danny's project or within her network, and the efforts that she put in to building the network were very, very, very rich. So we had a nice balanced conversation about looking at a lot of the network enablers, and I think it came through that everybody was able to perceive the way that Danny talked about her initiative and her work in building this network, as well as localizing her learnings from a regional level down to a more local level in Bolivia, that all the network enablers were mentioned and were clear in the present or through the presentation. So I'll stop there. I think I covered the basis, and thanks to Danny as well as to Ratna, Ralph, Temi, and Dominic for joining the conversation.
Thanks very much, Douglas, and we do wish you the best. I know you're not feeling so well, but it was very good to have you with us. Thanks for having facilitated. I would add to your comments that I felt like Daniela also brought in some like different ways of knowing and being, even from the graphic perspective with the designs, Dani, that you were using in your presentation. It's not only about communicating through words and the mind, but also reaching people at other levels and connecting with them in other ways. These can be brought forward. I would like to, Katrin, I'd like to invite the speakers back onto the stage. We'd like to have a short moment of reflection with the speakers. You've presented your cases, your stories, your networks in a public conference to people who may or may not have known much about your cases. We've applied a methodology to interpret those cases and look at strengths and opportunities for potentially enlivening your work even further. How was this experience for you? What is one thing that's very present for you now? It could be a question, it could be an insight, it could be an immediate next step that you want to take. I would ask that you just please each share one thing that you're feeling or thinking about this process, and let's go in the same order that we presented, if we could, with Beatriz and then Jiska and on to Daniela. Go ahead.
I just posted a comment for Dani's initiative, but I also wanted to post one for Jiska, because I mean, I'm really, really happy and thankful for being part of this group, also together with you and with the feminist approach from Jiska and from Dani, also this bottom-up approach from Latin America. And I'm very, very inspired by the work that you do. And I wish I could also be in your sessions. And thank you, CLI, also for having us and making us able to share the work that we have been doing, because it's not easy and it takes a lot of energy. It's not always recognized, and I really appreciate to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Beatriz. You see some of the reactions coming. What's up? Jiska, a thought or a feeling from you about today's experience?
Well, thank you, Beatriz. I can give the same back also to the CLI team. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. From my side, again, I think the session was a reflection of that process may matter more than product. So I think it's a thought I have with the vision, the guidelines, is that, I mean, just human beings talking to each other is the proof of the pudding, and not how like well the pudding tastes in the end, or how it looks like in the end. Yes, thank you to the small group, and also thank you to the CLI team for like putting this theory on top of the practice. Yeah, I think this human beings in a process together matters more than product is my take-home message for today.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jiska. And I hope the theory is not on top of anything, but rather that our theory and practice can go side by side, shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand with all the good work that you're doing. Daniela, over to you. A feeling, a thought about this process of applying the compass to your case, your story.
Yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of appreciation to the speakers as well. It's like so inspiring. to see actually like a work in a project, because this is not my case, right? It's like a very different approach. As I told you at the beginning, I mean, systemic change needs a systemic mind, and this can be like very, very difficult, right? It can get out of your control. And I was close to burnout 2 years ago, because you're managing so much relationship, you manage so much trust, you manage such a amount of delicate information between different stakeholders, so you don't create, you know, an imbalance, or you disrupt a process that maybe took a lot of time. Like, trust is something that can be broken very easily and take years sometimes to build. And I think that I was really going crazy about what I was experiencing since 2016. And when you present me Lulequa present me the framework, again, it was a relief, right? Because then it's, okay, this is what I was doing. Now it makes sense for me. Now I can see it from the past. Hopefully I will have used this in the future, but in the moment it's so difficult. And even having like the concepts of the compass very present, or the dialogic framework, when you don't own the projects, you have to do all this like piece by piece in very disorganized way. I would say like also follows like the organic dynamic in Latin America. So you have to come back again to all the steps all the time. So it can get you very crazy. It can be very, very lonely. And I can only make sense of that process today. In that moment, it could have been impossible even to plan this craziness.
Thank you, Daniela, for your openness and the way that you share. The compass and all of our methodologies indeed are best adapted to specific contexts. That's how they're designed. So we're glad that they're embedded and useful. If they're useful in your context, please continue to adapt them. And I'm wishing you also lots of spaces for retreat and rejuvenation. I'm reminded of the communities of practice that we were discussing on Wednesday as a place for practitioners like all of us to have a chance to step back and to take care of ourselves as well. The pattern of aliveness that we exude, whether it's alive or not so alive, has an impact on our work. So to all of us, let's be kind to ourselves and to one another in that regard. Let's give a big round of applause for our three speakers. Thank you very much for having put effort into your presentations and for having been with us today. This was really extraordinary. We're wishing you really well in your onward journeys, wherever those might take you. Let's continue to stay in touch with this broader community that we're creating here. So thank you.